G'day guys, Tillers20 here and welcome back to Marble Mountain. Exciting times in Marble Mountain as we are working on the other side of the bay. This is pretty exciting territory and I have a whole bunch of stuff I want to show you that I've been doing off camera. If you're new, we have been working on this area over here. This is Oakwood and Almendra Bay I should say, and it's just on the other side of the capital city of Marble Mountain. It's just this really great area that we've only just started scratching the surface of. I'm going to show you some stuff that I did over in the, like around the long distance train station in a sec. But we're going to start a journey over in Montana because I've been working on the light rail line that now stretches its way across the bridge, which, I mean, it's just really fun. I'm not going to lie. It is really, really, really fun. So yeah, it comes across here. Might have to slow down that corner there because it's going a little bit fast, and then it comes across the bay, which is just so picturesque. I can't wait till we actually have a bit more city over this side and we can start doing some like passenger service first person videos, which is just gonna be awesome. But I mean, check it out. So cool. So anyway, you've seen all that, nothing new. Crosses the Bay Bridge, crosses the bridge, as I say, it's not called the Bay Bridge. Goes past our toll booth where I am charging people a pretty hefty amount of money to come over the bridge. And over this side, this is where we're going to be working today. This is where we're going to have some old school rail. This is going to be some abandoned rail lines that serve the industry that we're going to work on in today's episode. And we've got the light rail now stretching along this middle side. Last episode we had it coming through here along the avenue, but I decided to put it in the middle here because this is like old abandoned freight line. I thought that it would make sense for us to use this line as a bit of pre-existing infrastructure so we can use that for our light rail, because I guess the light rail has been introduced over this side only more recently, and yeah, that's sort of the idea behind that. Here's the first station. I don't know what to call this station just yet. It's going to be in the middle of this industrial area here, but there's also going to be like a little bit of a like commercial district over this side too. So yeah, we're going to do some freight and some old abandoned industry over here. I've just done a little bit of line work over here, a bit of detail work on this intersection, which I really love. Pretty simple. I've just used some decals to just put down some like stop lines, which the people obey by, which is pretty amazing. And I've just sunken in some decals in here. Did this in the last episode, but works so well. I really did love that. And I've used the same technique as well, using these wooden pillars just to put down into the ground so that it shows that it's a bit more of a crossing. Need to figure out what to do on these edges, but you know, I guess seeing as it is abandoned train line, we can't get away with that. And then it makes its journey into the long distance train hub, which people are deciding to just drive across, which is just killing the immersion. Thanks a lot, cars. Can you please go away? Can you please stop it? So yeah, and here's where the metro line or the light rail line terminates, and then it makes its journey back over to Montana. And this area is just bustling. It is so bustling, and it's so exciting. Now, you guys are probably wondering, hey, $2. Trams in this game don't do they can't terminate and then go backwards. How'd you do it? Well, this is what I did. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. Basically, do you want to see it? Well, flying through. There's our long distance train. He's just made his way from Chinchilla. Boop. Down he goes into a tunnel and then just completely flips out over here. It's not pretty. There's nothing pretty about that. Oh, I hate that so much. I don't know what else to do. I think I probably just need to play these nodes a little bit more to stop that from doing exactly that. So just ignore that. All right, we'll fix him up. I think it's also because I've messed up the station a little bit. Ignore that. How cool is this long distance train? I mean, that is so exciting. This comes all the way into Oakwood, all the way from over here. So this is a true long distance journey. I've only got 2 going so far. That's all we really need. Otherwise, it's going to get a bit crowded over here. And I like that it's a little bit more of a less frequent hub for people who are going interstate, but I just really love that. I've also dragged a footpath along here so that people are actually using this pathway, and I mean, this area is just bustling. It's really cool. We've also got, speaking of bustling, get it? Bustling? Alright, I'm going to stop. We have this bus station here, which I've only just dragged a really simple connection. These guys are pretty much just connecting up to Montana, and I actually want to do a whole episode where we work on the bus networks because they're getting a little bit messy, and we have all these stops here that we could use and make function in a much better fashion. But yeah, people are actually making the journeys through here. I want less pedestrians coming from Montana to here, and I want more people like this being a bit more of an interstate bus line, so we might work on that as well. Not in today's episode, of course. Yeah, so the next episode of Montana, of Marble Mountain I should say, we're going to work on just expanding out this whole area, and it should be really fun. But for today, I want to work on a bit of the freight, and what I want this to look like is I want it to be a little bit like Los Angeles-esque, with the train lines coming into the warehouses like this. We'll have a couple of tight corners that are coming in and a bit of abandoned freight around here, and you know, it's going to be a little bit of a more gentrified area as we creep into Oakwood, but Almendra Bay is still pretty nice, but it has a bit of an old industrial past, which I would like to try and include somewhere along the line. But yeah, that's the ideas going in. Wish me luck. Let's get into the builds. Alright, so this ended up turning out way better than I expected. I ended up putting in way more time than I originally had planned to. This was only meant to be a short episode, guys. That's why I did the whole live play to begin with, but then I just got so carried away. I never learn. When am I going to do a short episode? When am I going to do like a half build? Instead, I always end up putting way too much time into these things, but oh well. So you're going to get an extra video. I hope you've enjoyed it. But basically, this whole area turned out a little bit more industrial than I expected. But I think that's totally fine because I want this area to feel as if it's in the process of being gentrified, but it's still not quite there yet. So you will see little pockets of areas where you're like, oh yeah, that's a little bit nicer. That's, you know, a little bit more hip and a little bit more, you know, affluent. But in other areas, you can see that there's still quite a lot of industry happening around here, and most probably getting pushed out at some point. So there's areas are being pushed out, and you will see that you know, the metro line, not the metro line, sorry, the light rail line, you will see that around that station will end up being a bit more, a little bit more nicer, a bit more hipster. I reckon there'd be some like coffee shops on the corner, and the apartments around here that probably range from, you know, like housing commission to probably like very, very expensive townhouses. That's the sort of area we're working in at the moment. So, you know, there's a bunch of people that think all the industry around here is cool and is really awesome, and then there's a bunch of people who, you know, in an area of eyesore. So I think that, you know, this area is definitely going through that transition. So we're going to have quite a bit of industry, and I'm going to create that using some warehouses and just using the poppable growables, the pop the growables mod as well, as I place down some growable industry. And you will see that it does take me a while to figure out the types of buildings to use around here. I decided to keep all that footage in so that you can see my process in it. And basically all the growables that I move away from the road, or, you know, if I do some kind of bit more crazier stuff with the connections, I end up changing them into procedural objects, which basically allows me to move them wherever I like without having to worry about them impacting the way that my city functions. A couple of people were saying that, you know, I didn't, you know, a couple of episodes ago, I said that I was using procedural objects to fix my industry. And some comments were saying that I was just hiding the problem, not actually fixing it. Well, that's true. Like, some of the problems I was just hiding. But, you know, for me, the gameplay was completely gone because of my, you know, basically I wasn't able to use the game functionality as I originally had planned to. I didn't realize that moving growables from the roads caused that issue. So then my game just wasn't functioning the way that I wanted it to. So in fact, hiding those problems made my city function, if that makes sense. And I think that's a really happy medium I'd like to find, is being able to detail places and to make things look more realistic, but then keeping the game functioning as well. And I think that's, you know, sort of the next level for me with City Skylines. Is I've done the detail stuff. Well, sorry, I started off with, you know, just vanilla game and just playing the game with money and trying to make everything work. That's when it first came out. And then I downloaded every mod and asset possible and created Springwood and just loved doing that. And then now I'm sort of like, well, where's the medium? Where's the part where we can still play the game and try and make things work, and then also trying to make things look as realistic as possible. And I think that that's a happy place. That's an area of gameplay that I wanna work in. And if that means using mods to basically hack the game so that, you know, there is some sort of functionality, then I think that's totally worth it. Because as you can see, we're still losing money. Like, it's not like I fixed all my problems and then, you know, everything, I just basically won the game or whatever. I still feel like there's still some sort of gameplay for me, and as long as that's happening, then I'm totally cool with that. So in terms of what we've been up to, we're basically trying to make it look like this rail has been long abandoned, some areas more so than others, and I've been playing around with the different types of buildings to place around here. And what I wanted is, I wanted there to be a bunch of these bigger warehouses and factories, and less of the smaller types of industry that you find within the globals. So we're using a lot of the industries like warehouses and the just like you also saw me place down a couple of, I think it might be the ore industry as well, that big building there. There's also some farming, basically any sort of building that I thought looked the most appropriate. So it's a bit of a mismatch. So you'll find some farming industry, you'll find some warehouses, you'll find some ore industry, and then a couple of plopped globals. And honestly, I was just trying to find buildings that gave the right shape, and that sort of meant that I had to clip some together, but I think it's well worth it. I think it really comes together. And like I said in the live play, not the time lapse, is I was going for a bit more of an LA vibe. And LA has some of the coolest rail history, I think. Some of the most inspiring rail history. I really love finding these areas where you can see where the train line used to go, and then it's gone, it's been uprooted, and now you can see where they've turned it into parks and houses. And I really love that, because you can see where it used to go and no longer goes anymore. And I just think that's awesome. And I want to include a bit of that within Marble Mountain. I'm probably thinking more so around Montana than around Oakwood. But I did want to have some pockets of that around here. One part that I did want to include around here was a way that the rail line interacts with these industrial areas within LA, sort of like, you know, intertwines within all these within these warehouses and these roads. And it's just so interesting, and a lot of it's been abandoned. It's no longer in use, so I wanted to include that in this area. So that's the general gist. So you can see going through some of the, like, some of the roads, and it's doing a couple of weird things, but you know, that's the general gist of what I'm trying to do. So the types of buildings that I was trying to go for, you know, we're trying to make it look like, you know, each block is sort of taken up with one type of industry. That's why we've got the ore there, and that's why we've got some, you know, there's more warehouses around here. And I've just used the globals just to place down to fill in some of the gaps, and that works really well to maintain that realism. You know, just using those globals to basically fill in areas that look like they still need a little bit more in there. But honestly, a lot of these areas have a lot of spare space for like storage, and you can see that I'm using a lot of the containers just to place them down, and they work really well to, you know, fill in those gaps. Those containers are pretty much scattered all over the place, and I'll probably use them in a bit more of an unrealistic fashion than, you know, than realistic, but I don't know, I think it works. We're also using a bunch of office blocks as well, like office buildings, because a lot of these industrial areas have like some office areas, and I think that a lot of those buildings look really cool too, so using a bunch of them. You saw that I just placed down a postal sorting facility, a building that I always forget about. I think it's an awesome looking asset, and yeah, I don't think people use it enough. I don't use it enough. I've only used it twice or so, and I just think it looks really great. I'm trying to as well include, like, and you might see that I'm doing this, but I'm trying to make it look like you can see where the original roads were. So it's sort of like these blocks have, you know, they're sort of like these blocks, and then in between they've got like an alleyway, and some of these blocks keep that alleyway, and then other ones turn into, you know, you can see that they've either turned into like parking lots, or you can see where that postal facility is using that existing road. So you can sort of see how industry sort of worked around these pre-existing roads, and you can see where the rail probably used to sit as well, and that's what we're trying to go for. You can see a little bit of the history of this area, but then also see where the industry has used those spaces to basically, you know, create a bit more infrastructure around here. And I'm also being really careful not to fill in too many of the gaps, because I do want this area to be quite open, and you know, as we're sprawling towards Montana, we're going towards that Montana bridge. You know, I wanted this area to feel as if, you know, you kind of drive, it's almost like that area where you drive past every day on your way to work, but you don't really like acknowledge it. You just go like, you know, driving over Montana bridge, we're going into Oakwood, now we're in the downtown, but you don't really consider what's over that tree line. And I wanted that vibe to go through, you know. It's almost like you see Google Earth and you go, I didn't know there was trains over there. Well, I didn't know there was industry over that spot. You know, it's that sort of vibe I wanted to go for. So you can see a little bit of abandoned industry around there, and we're going to be creating a bit of an unrealistic looking freight parking place. I don't know what this is. I basically just wanted some freights around here, and I sort of justified it by putting in a bit of industry around here. This is going to be a bit of a like factory that's going to sit there, and it's just going to be really overgrown. So this is probably like one of the last things, not the last things, this is probably one of the first things to become abandoned. Unfortunately, there is still smoke coming from the chimney, so I don't know, it's obviously still functioning, but you just have to use your imagination, guys, all right? Just close your eyes, imagine that this place is abandoned, all right? That's what we're going for. I failed to mention as well, like, how cool is that light rail bridge going over to Montana? I love it so much. It's so cool. So it takes on this like whole journey, you know, across the bridge, and it like raises up around there, and you can sort of imagine that line maybe at some point was like an industrial line that went over to Montana, potentially, I don't know. Or maybe it's just a new development as they've added in the light rail. But regardless, it's there, and I think it's really cool as it makes that journey, you know, into Oakwood and, you know, across that bridge. I think it's really quite cool. It goes over all this old factories and stuff. Quite a lot of greenery, and I'm quite happy with that because we need a little bit of these sort of spaces. I really regret not putting in more open spaces in Montana. I really filled in that city quite a lot, and when we get back over there, we're going to probably demolish a couple of blocks and pop in a little bit more space, because I think we filled it up a little bit too quickly and it's just a bit too full. So we're going to fix it up a bit. But look, that's future projects. Something that I didn't mention that I did previously is there is also a fish factory, I believe, that you can see some of the rail line interacts with. I tried to make it look like it goes inside the warehouses, so inside the door, so into the warehouse, which I think is a pretty cool effect. And I really like that there's a fish factory over here, and that there's ore over here, and that there's farming warehouses over here too, because, you know, it's sort of fun knowing that out in the desert we have a whole bunch of ore being produced, and that over in Copper Falls there's a whole bunch of farms, and even on the outskirts of you know, this city, Oakwood, we're gonna have some farms as well. And then within the city we've got all this industry set up for that industry, basically. So it's this really great connection. I really love knowing that all those trucks that are coming in and out, and all those vehicles are sort of making that journey all the way around Marble Mountain. It's not just isolated to the city. And if you were to click on any of those trucks, you can see that a lot of them are going out to Chinchilla, a lot of them are going to, the fish industry in Montana. It's great. It's really, really fun to explore. And just a quick plug, if you ever want to explore any of this, I do make this save available to some of my patrons. Not some of them, to my patrons. So if you're ever interested in checking out and flying around the city, yeah, it's just one of those perks that you get for supporting something that I love to do. So we've just popped in a little bit of detail work around the light rail. So this needs a little bit of explaining. This light rail station is obviously something that has been developed pretty recently. I reckon this light rail has been only been around for, I don't know, I was going to say a date, but I have no idea how long this has been here for. But it's definitely been here a shorter period of time than the industry. So you can see that it overlaps a lot of the lines that sit around here. And that's because they've sort of kept a lot of the pre-existing industrial lines, I should say, because it adds charm, and it's probably quite an interesting and unique experience or station, I guess. And they probably kept it for that sort of vibe, so that all these coffee shops and bars have that rustic historical look to it. And plus, it'd be expensive ripping up a whole bunch of these lines, so maybe eventually they'll get to it. But yeah, I really like that pedestrian path crosses that line. It's obviously not in use anymore. I would like to put it to you guys, should we put it in use or should we keep it abandoned? I'm not really sure. I like that it's no longer in use, but there is a part of me that would love to see a freight train just slowly crawling its way past that light rail line. I don't know, just a little bit. Maybe. We'll see. I don't know where it would go, but I think it'd just be fun. Or maybe that's sort of part of the charm. You just imagine what it used to look like. And I guess that's sort of part of the fun of these areas. I know Darling Harbour in Sydney, where I live, is has this old industrial line that is now being turned into, or at least parts of it have been turned into a light rail line. And it's just really fun, like going along that light rail and knowing the journey that the freight used to take around here. And I just think that's really cool. So that's something that you just enjoy being around this area. But you can see there's a real mix of types of commercial and types of office blocks that are around here. We've got some bars that you can see that are like quite hip and quite cool, and slowly becoming gentrified. And then you've got some other areas that are really quite ugly and a bit more fast foody. So across the rail line, you can actually see in the industrial area, you've got a bit more of that that there's a building that are placed out. It's probably more fast food, whereas closer to the light rail station on the other side of the rail, you've instead probably got like this really nice bar and a bit more of a Whole Foods type of place. So I really enjoyed that. Like, this whole area is quite a nice looking area, and I don't think we really have any of these sort of areas within Marble Mountain at this stage. I know around one of the other light rail stations was a bit more affluent, but that's like very much more like that's been gentrified way earlier than this area, whereas this place is still transitioning. At this point, this is like me realizing that this episode is no longer a short episode. So if you guys don't know, I try and keyword is try. I try to make short episodes for midweek so that I can just keep giving you guys content, because I'm aware that sometimes it can be 2 weeks in between Marble Mountain episodes. So I try to find builds that I can do kind of quickly, and commentary I can just lay over, and that's why sometimes I see more live play or longer live play in other episodes, is because I'm trying to get that nice balance so that you're getting frequent content and you're getting little updates on Marble Mountain, and then on weekends you got like big builds with pure time lapses. This episode was meant to be in midweek, and that's why I recorded the live play at the beginning, and was thinking, okay, I'll just do like a little run over and then we'll build a bit of freight industry around here. But I just got so into this build that I was like, you know what, let's just keep on going. So yeah, it's a pretty fun episode. This whole area has probably like my favorite level of detail, I think, is you know, doing big wads of developments and then also, you know, getting a lot of that detail and character. And this place has so much character. If you are part of the wiki and working on that wiki page, then I think that this area, which by the way this whole district doesn't have a name, so if you want to hit up any name suggestions, go for it. But yeah, this whole area has so much character. It's really, really quite cool. And the cinematics are just around the corner. They're really quite, they really capture the vibe of this area too. And in the next episode, we will be working on expanding out Oakwood, because I do want this city to get a bit more developed, because it's, yeah, just like little pockets at the moment. And I would like to see this start really develop up. And yeah, then we can start moving on to other projects. But I dare say we're going to be working around Oakwood and Almendra Bay for quite a few episodes, because this area is going to be pretty well detailed and pretty well established. I'm really enjoying the way this thing's developing up. And if you are too, then hey, leave me some comments, and liking the video helps me a bunch and lets me know that you guys enjoy it. Also lets YouTube know if you guys enjoy it too, so that might be a good incentive to like the video. Before I go, I do want to say a special thanks to Lewis Jones, Ziang Zheng, Colton Blokes, Josh Goring, Miko, Slody, Christian Compton, and Joseph Diaz. Guys, thank you so much for your support on Patreon, and thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!